Now I'm here to finish some unfinished business, which is something you rarely see me doing, so consider yourself lucky. Now the game I am looking at is a premature orgasm as a result of sloppy and lazy programming on a cash-in of a movie franchise which sank in the Pacific Ocean for being uninteresting and crap. The game I am referring to is, of course, Beethoven 2nd. The title doesn't even grammatically make sense, as if calling it Beethoven 2 wasn't classy and efficient enough to get people interested. They might as well add in a cliche subtitle while they're at it, like Beethoven 2nd, Beethoven Strikes Back, or Beethoven 2nd, Oops, He Pooped in the House Again. Or my personal favorite, Beethoven 2nd gets put down for being a horny mutt who had 4 pups who decided to run away from his dumbass of a father. Believe it or not, that's the plot of the game. What the lower half is anyway, the upper half is the plot of this review. Now before we get any further into this game, let's look at the first impression the game makes as soon as you turn it on. Looks typical and decent, but the quality of the text is much to be desired. Not to mention, for a game made in 1993, the title sequence is the most dullest I've seen in a Super Nintendo game. Now before you fret at me, let me point out that one of the most underrated games ever, called Top Gear for the Super Nintendo, was released a year earlier, and had a lot going for it at the time, being a third-party title and all that jazz. Beethoven 2nd leaves a bad taste in your mouth, as well as attempt to make your ears bleed when you turn the game on. Now, I'm not going to get into detail on the lack of quality on the title sequence, but rather the objectives pointed at each level. Let that stand for the effort put towards this bucket of vomit that's apparently the definition of the game, if you find that hardly believable. Though, I'll admit, the graphics aren't bad looking. With the human enemies, they look similar to the character design of those in the SNK fighting games. Don't question me on that, they just do. The music, on the other hand, while decent, the music in the first stage is the game's rendition of one of the many famous symphonies by Beethoven, Symphony No. 5, which is the game's way of pissing on Beethoven's grave. Oh, and the third stage has the same song, but it's even worse. And don't even get me started on stage 4. Just listen. For a musical legend such as Beethoven, this is an insult. The only original song is the second stage, which is actually not bad. No originality has been attempted otherwise whatsoever. The gameplay itself is where the game really falls apart. The moving mechanics are some of the most horrible. Beethoven slips even at the tap of a button, and as you build up speed, it gets worse when you try to stop. To add insult to the injury, he moves at a snail's pace. You know a game is bad when you have to bounce to get anywhere in the game. As for attacking, there are 2 ways to attack. One way is to bark at your foes with the Y button, which will either scare them so much they'll run, either by building up a load in their bowels, or by immediate relief of their prostate, whichever comes first. The other is to get wet and press A to get everyone on the screen wet, which will make them scared practically shitless to will the GTFO. You can eat objects off the ground also, but let's go in depth of what the game itself presents. Now offhand, the level designs are just downright putrid. They are very linear, and when the game does give multiple paths, it is only at the final level, otherwise it takes you nowhere. The obstacles in the game is the most laughable. The enemy selection consists of animals that like cats, who are miniature cousins of the Phase 5 Twisters. Poodles, skateboarding chums, who remind me of Terry Bogard, the always reoccurring safari hunter who for some reason wants Beethoven drugged up, rabid dogs and tigers, birds, eagles, and even wooden gates, light posts, apples, and especially twigs sticking out of trees that harm you. I wish I was making that up. I didn't know the inanimate objects can pose such deadly threat towards you. I thought they were just part of the background. But hey, whatever to increase the game's challenge factor while decreasing its fairness. In other words, trial and error as a result of unfair challenge, or as I like to call it, bullshit challenge. You won't see where your enemies are until the camera completely pans, and when you do find them, it's already too late. Speaking of the unfair camera, this game is littered with sloppy programming. There are falling platforms in the 3rd and 4th levels. In the first part of the 3rd, you can tell which is the falling platform if you looked real closely. The rest cannot be told offhand, and when you do find out which it is, you're already dead. The broken moving mechanics does not help a single bit, as when you are on the falling platform, the controls lock for a second, making moving a chore. Sometimes in level 3 and 4, when you try to get on platforms, you'll end up slipping to your death. The biggest insult of all to programmers everywhere is this. Just pay attention to what I'm doing here. Hey, I got an extra life. Oops, I'm dead. Big surprise! Looks like I wasted a life. Guess I'll just continue the game as normal and... what the? How did it... Oh, you got to be pulling my leg. The programmers are so lazy they can't even make a one-time event to occur. It would make sense, say for instance you had to spin a continue, but every time you die, everything respawns, enemies and items alike. No checkpoints neither. The continue system itself serves no real purpose besides giving you the option to cut your wrist some more with 3 more lives, or to actually stop being an emotional cunt and stop playing this worthless piece of shit, and go outside for once. The answer is obvious. Now, as for the plot itself, which is apparently worth the game's full $50 price tag, ooh! It is about rescuing the 4 puppies that horny mutt apparently gave birth to with a former bitch who doesn't even give a shit for Beethoven's efforts. You can clearly see the enthusiasm in her face when she sees her puppies back alive and well. Not to mention, save the puppies. What was threatening them to begin with? Well, other than Beethoven obviously abusing them when the puppies try to get away from him instead of getting to the end of the level, which is always at the right, and the careless, lifeless mother of theirs who does absolutely nothing to help Beethoven besides trying to imitate Paris Hilton, why wouldn't you want to run away from these two? Britney Spears and that rigger douchebag makes a better couple compared to these two. To the ending! Now, after going through a path above the caves, only to be treated with 2 deadly but apparently easily breakable twigs in a way, and believe me, they don't break. I finally beat the game, and my reward is a congratulations screen that is similar to that of preschool games that are more fun than this. That and the world's worst drawing I've ever seen. It's worse than any poorly traced and self-proclaimed original artwork you see on DeviantArt. And before you fret, I'm going out on a limb and say that my 3rd grade self has better artistic talents than the designers do. On a closing note, Beethoven's Second is nothing more than a cash-in on a franchise which no one remembers anymore. It is a waste of programming that has plagued the wallets of fans who actually like the movie. The game itself deserves to be pinned to the cross and burned for the sins as committed. Maybe I am being a bit harsh, but who wasn't? No for the delay. To the stake with you!